Great. Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Leslie Kerner, and along with Shayna Sackett-Gable, I'm co-president of the South Orange-Maplewood School District's President's Council. President's Council is an assembly of all the current elected presidents and vice presidents of the PTAs, HSAs, and CPEC. Our goals are to foster and strengthen our school communities locally and district-wide, facilitate productive communication with the district, and optimize the efforts of the PTAs and HSAs through collaboration and shared knowledge. In this ever-changing landscape, your PTA and HSA leadership is working harder than ever to keep your school communities strong. We're also doing everything we can to continue strengthening partnerships with parents, students, teachers, school leadership, district administration, the Achieve Foundation, local businesses and organizations, and the Board of Ed. Tonight, we're proud to partner with the League of Women Voters to present this debate. And now I turn it over to Michelle Babreau, one of our local League of Women Voter representatives.
Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Maplewood South Orange, I am pleased to welcome you to our virtual forum for the Board of Education. I am president of the Maplewood South Orange League and delighted to represent them. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Empowering voters, defending democracy is our message. Elections and voting are core concerns for the League. We are committed to providing fact-based information about issues and positions candidates take on those issues to help voters make their own decisions and participate in our electoral process. We envision a democracy where everyone has the right, the knowledge, the confidence, and the opportunity to participate. The League of Women Voters never supports or opposes candidates for office or political parties. Any use of the League name or footage from this debate in campaign materials, literature, or advertising of any kind, including internet, cable, or television, has not been authorized by the League of Women Voters. If you would like to participate in any of our efforts, the League actively seeks diversity in our membership. We are open to people 16 years and older of all gender identities. With over 100 years of experience, the League is one of America's oldest and most trusted civic nonprofit organizations. We also encourage everyone to go to vote411.org, which provides a one-step site for information on all aspects of voting in New Jersey, as well as information about all candidates up and down the ballot. If you have questions about voting, mail-in ballots, or in-person voting, we have information on the New Jersey League website, LWVNJ.org, to help educate voters. All League forums can be seen on the LWVNJ.org website and the vote411.org website. At this point, I would like to introduce our moderator, Laura Engelhardt of Summit, a trained moderator and member of the League of Women Voters of Berkeley Heights, New Providence Summit, and therefore not a voting member in this area. She will introduce the candidates and outline the format for this evening. Laura?
Thank you. There are 5 candidates running for 3 seats on the Board of Education, each serving a term of 3 years. And we are pleased to welcome all 5 of them here tonight. I'd like to thank the candidates for their cooperation and for giving us their time and attention today. We have candidate Cuddle, candidate Rodriguez, candidate Telesford, candidate Vadlamani, and candidate Whitlitter here with us tonight. Under the rules of the forum, all questions were required to be submitted in advance. No additional questions will be accepted at this time. I will be asking between 5 and 6 questions that were provided by the presidents of the PTAs and HSAs who solicited their communities of parents, guardians, and families regarding the information they most wanted to learn. So in order to be efficient, we will only be using these questions, which have been provided to the candidates in advance. Tonight's event will be recorded, as President Brobaugh mentioned. It will also be provided to the Village Green for posting, and you will receive an email with a link to the rebroadcast after tonight's event, so that if you have to disconnect, you can watch the whole event there. No one else is allowed to photograph or record this event. Before we begin the question round, each candidate will have 90 seconds to make an opening statement and introduce themselves. During our question round, all candidates will have 90 seconds to respond, and there will be no rebuttals. For all answers, the timekeeper will hold up a yellow card indicating when 30 seconds of their time remains, and the red card indicating the time to stop. After the question round, there will be an opportunity for each candidate to make their closing remarks. The speaking order will be the reverse of their opening statements. For the question round, I used a randomizer on my computer to determine speaking order to ensure maximum fairness. I'd now like to ask the candidates to offer a brief statement about their qualifications, including information about the ways in which they have been involved in the school district prior to their run for Board of Education. We will start tonight with candidate Cuddle.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and President's Council for hosting tonight's forum. Thank you to my fellow candidates for stepping up in service for the Board of Education. My name is Shannon Cuddle. My pronouns are they and them, and I'm currently serving in my first term on the Board of Education and currently serve as first Vice President. I also have the honor to serve as Vice President of the Essex County School Board, elected by my Essex County School Board colleagues, and also serve as the Essex County representative elected to the New Jersey School Board Association Board of Directors, representing Essex County. I've been an educational leader and civil rights advocate for over 20 years. I've driven innovation, education, civil rights policy, and programming with a background and focus on equity, inclusion, and safe schools, leading to successful statewide and national intersectional education and civil rights policy and programming. I had a prepared statement tonight, as many that we did, but I really feel compelled to speak out this evening. The work that we do as a board, as a community, the work that I do is a prime directive to everything that I do. And I just want to take a moment to say that I am deeply disturbed about the incidents of alleged hate and bias that have occurred in our community, the alleged hate and graffiti that have anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, and racism that have been across our schools. And I'm speaking as myself, not on behalf of the Board of Education, but hate is not welcome here. Hate speech, discrimination, and I will be working to ask Superintendent Taylor to be able to look and move forward into these situations so we can look at best practices and provide resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to candidate Telesford, please.
Hello, I'm Dr. Kwame Telesford. I'm running to serve on the Board of Education. Many thanks to the President's Council and League of Women Voters for organizing tonight's debate. I'm a lifelong resident of South Orange, and I'm happy to say that I grew up in this community. I attended Clinton, South Orange Middle, and Columbia High School. After that, I went into the field of biomedical engineering, where I obtained a PhD. I currently do research using biomedical imaging to understand how the brain works. When I consider my academic accomplishments, I've always felt this school district provided me with a great foundation. And it's one of the main reasons why I moved back here a few years ago and plan to raise a family here with my wife. When I moved back here, I was not surprised to see that our school district has changed a lot. One of the areas the district has begun to make progress in are issues of equity and access, which I believe is important for providing a great education to all students. When I think about the goals the district is pursuing, I recognize them as big picture ideas with great complexity. And to achieve these goals requires a strong collaborative team. In scientific research, advances can only happen in a collaborative space. Working in these spaces has given me an appreciation for using data-driven and evidence-based approaches to understand difficult topics. I'm running this year because I believe my experience can be an asset to the board. I'm running on a common ticket with Arun Vadlamani. He's a passionate and committed parent with 2 children in our school district. Both Arun and I share a vision of a school system that provides a path for all children to succeed. Tonight, we hope to share some of that vision and gain your support. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to candidate Whitletter.
I'm Caitlin Whitletter, and I'm running for the Board of Education because our district needs to be better, and I want to work hard and fight for it to be better. Let me tell you what that means to me. We need a rigorous curriculum that is current and offers our students a best-in-class education. We must close the achievement gap that has plagued this education system for far too long. And we must invest in our teachers and their ongoing professional development. We need a comprehensive security plan ensuring safe facilities. Earlier this summer, I applied for the 6-month Board of Education seat, and I didn't get the job, but I left feeling inspired and ready to do the work to serve this community. I have spent the last few months putting in countless hours to get informed. I've met with teachers, parents, current board members, past board members, leaders within the community to learn different perspectives and experiences and better understand the main priorities of this district. I've been so dedicated to this work that the other day when I was late to pick up my daughter from school, she told the teacher it was because I was running for the Board of Education. The single motivating factor in doing this work has been not just for my children, but for all of our children. And I've been very active in this community as a Girls on the Run coach, both at the Jefferson School and this year at the Maplewood Memorial School. These experiences with our students have and continue to inspire me, and I'm impatient for change and for outcomes in this district. We cannot wait another year to take action and address the challenges we are facing. And I want to make education better for every student. And I believe we can do that.
Thank you. We will now hear from candidate Vadlamani.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the President's Council for organizing this debate. Friends and citizens of South Orange and Maplewood, it's my honor to be running to be on the Board of Education of the South Orange-Maplewood School District. I grew up in Mumbai, India, where I observed poverty firsthand and how even a few years of basic education can make a significant positive impact on children's lives. Since then, I've been very passionate about children's education. First, as a volunteer, and then as a member of the board of the nonprofit Asha for Education. I'm a strong proponent of high quality public school education. Both my daughters have been in the school district's kindergarten. The older one is a 10th grader at Columbia High School, and the younger one is a 6th grader in SOPS. Over the past decade, I've been a proud Girl Scouts dad. I am the cookie distribution coordinator of the entire district of 62. My wife and I have volunteered at school by celebrating math on Pi Day, rocket science and lightsabers on Star Wars Day, and coding during the hour of code. I want to ensure that we continue to offer all children a path to success in whatever they choose to do, academics, athletics, arts, or in creating a whole new field of study. I want to take this opportunity to share my point of view and priorities if elected to the BOE. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now hear from candidate Rodriguez.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone for participating and organizing this event, and most importantly, for including me. My name is Will Rodriguez. I moved to Maplewood in May of 2020. My experience with the board, my experience with the district began when we enrolled my 3-year-old into the Universal Pre-K program. It was immediately apparent to me that the district can use some improvements in the way they communicated with parents. Besides that, I wanted to build relationships with my neighbors and the community at large. I began to research the district and dig into all of the projects that seemed to be happening concurrently. It was quite a bit to absorb, whether it's the whether it's the integration plan, the long-term facilities plan, or some of the issues that have come out of the plan, specifically logistics. It's been quite a bit. What I've enjoyed about this process is that it's allowed me to listen deeply and to come up with some solutions for how to improve the district going forward. I feel that my experience in management and my experience in volunteerism make me an ideal candidate for the board. Besides that, I'm a parent and I'm getting involved early because the ultimate success of my child in this district is very important to me.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now move on to the questioning round. The first question is will be addressed in order to all candidates. And as I mentioned, I will be rotating the order to ensure that different candidates have an opportunity to speak first. The first question will be going to Mr. Or to candidate Vadlamani. And then it will be followed in order by the different candidates so that everyone has a chance to respond to the same question. The New Jersey School Board Association Code of Ethics states, I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run. What is your vision for a well-run school district? How will you know whether the district is achieving that vision?
So, I work at, all of us work somewhere else, and many corporations hire very high-priced consultants to come up with very inspiring vision statements. Now, they not to be too long, nobody reads them, and certainly nobody understands them. So my vision for a well-run school district is pretty simple. Children are safe, children are happy, and children are thriving. That's pretty straightforward. They're excelling in their capacity to do whatever they choose to do. Academics, athletics, arts, or in creating a whole new field of study. If children are happy, then the parents are happy, which means that teachers are teaching well, and the administrators are obviously doing their job, and everyone leaves the BOE alone. So to see the progress, I would like to see, this is again, looking forward, is a school district dashboard, where at a glance, you can see the progress the district is making. Like for example, we're doing the intentional integration plan. First question comes up is that working? So that is very easily done by having a very simple graph that shows a percentage of demographics at each school. And also very importantly, the vision needs to be short and be very achievable. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Whitlander.
Yes, thank you. Our district is experiencing a shocking loss of enrollment. Last year in the 2020-2021 academic year, we saw the biggest decline in enrollment rates in almost a decade and a half. I know that me personally, and I can probably speak for all of us, that we want a district where we have people moving here for the schools and not moving away because of the schools. And a well-run district starts at the top with leadership. I believe I can work with a board to fashion one voice by establishing shared values and goals. And I believe that the board has the ability to become a better functioning body, a body that respects a diversity of thought and has mutual respect for all voices so that we can create unified vision and that direction for the superintendent. And I will help the board realize its managerial role for the superintendent so that he has his space to run the district and we can hold him accountable to achieve results for students. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Rodriguez.
Thank you, moderator. When I think of a well-run school board, it's really a board that I don't need to think about on almost a daily basis. I think about the board being comprised of people that I know and trust, that I voted for, and that align with the issues that are important to me and the community, not necessarily a group or a block of people. A well-run board is able to measure progress, because if you can't measure progress, you can't measure improvement. And a well-run board is transparent with the community. So the same way that board members endeavor to treat each other fairly and to be inclusively, that same behavior needs to be modeled outward towards the community. So by that, I mean, the community needs to have ample time to review a policy. The community deserves to have context behind decisions, and the community needs to understand how the board prioritizes, because the way a board prioritizes certain issues may not align with what's important to parents. But I think that as a parent myself and as an executive, if I can align with the board's priorities and the greater community's priorities, it would go down a lot easier with me at home, and I don't need to think about these things on an almost daily basis.
Thank you. Candidate Telesford.
Okay, when I think of what makes a well-run school district, it's about a board that works collaboratively together, and they provide the superintendent with clear goals to enact their vision of the district. I think too often the board can get in the way of running schools. And I think a successful school is one where the principal enacts the district's vision, and then they do this by collaborating with the administration, and they provide and they provide a framework for that school. And the board's role in this is that they create that framework and work with the superintendent to carry out that vision. The key point is that it is a collaborative network and no one controls any part of the system. We all have to work together. And I think we know the system is working well when we see happy, engaged children that feel included, because that's the main thing that we're striving for.
Thank you. I'm going to start the next round with question 2. The first will be addressed to candidate Whitlater, followed by the other candidates. What do you consider to be the top 3 most urgent issues facing our district today? And how do you see the role of the Board of Education in addressing those issues?
Moderator, sorry, Shannon, were you able to answer the last question?
Candidate Cuddle? I believe I
think you accidentally skipped me.
I apologize. Thank you very much, Candidate Whitlater, and I apologize, Candidate Cuddle. I'm very, very sorry.
Could you, just for clarification, so we know where we're back at, can you please repeat the question?
Absolutely. The New Jersey School Boards Association Code of Ethics states, I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members, to see that they are well run. What is your vision for a well-run school district? How will you know whether the district is achieving that vision?
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, it's that wouldn't be if every child feels as though that they have a trusted adult. They have a trusted adult in the building that they can go to for support, for resources that they can seek out, for guidance, for mentoring, for the students. And if we have students who know that they have trusted adults and individuals anywhere in our school community, we know that that's progress that's being made, that's moving us forward. Another part of that is also making sure that we understand our board responsibilities and the role of ourselves as board members, and working in concert with making sure that we're setting our district and board policy board goals, policies for the district, and doing the work, the hard work of making sure we're outlining what the district and board's plans are to move forward to reach those measurable data collection goals. If we do not do outreach and be able to work to see where our data collection points are at, to be able to see where our pluses and minuses are, we don't have the data that we need to make good informed choices, policies, or be the good shepherds of the Board of Education. The last part of that is collaboration, being able to work together thoughtfully, mindfully, and collaboratively to be able to come united to move our district forward. These are signs that will help us get towards getting to where we need to be on the Board of Education to move SMSD forward.
Thank you. We'll move on to the second question now, starting with candidate Whitlater, and I'll read the question again and I'll follow that, and hopefully I don't miss anyone this time around, but please do tell me if I make another mistake. What do you consider to be the top 3 most urgent issues facing our district today? And how do you see the role of the Board of Education in addressing those issues?
Thank you. I'd like to reframe, the urgent issues into where our biggest opportunities lie. And it really starts with operational effectiveness. With the intentional integration initiative underway and the long-range facility plan underway, we really need to make sure that we are continuing to identify clear goals around monitoring and ensuring these initiatives are implemented in a timely manner and competently. We want to make sure that it's done with excellence and transparency so that our community is aware of what we're doing and how we're continuing to evolve these things so that they are always our best output. For me personally, I think teaching and learning is a critical opportunity in this district. There's so many new and innovative ways to learn. In South Orange, a charter school just opened up that's focusing specifically on project-based learning. We can't have those conversations because our curricula is over 10 years old in many cases. We're starting the work, but we need to do it faster. And I think there's always an opportunity to increase professional development. Our teachers need access to education to be better forms of themselves and to serve our children better. So those are two of my main focuses. And I really think that it would behoove all of us to close the achievement gap that we know has been present in this district for far too long. And we can do that by prioritizing data collection so we can make more informed decisions and make sure that the intentional integration initiative is working for all of our students.
Thank you. Candidate Rodriguez.
Hi. Again, so I think the three priorities from my view are COVID response, along with keeping schools open, improving achievement, and improving infrastructure. First, let me talk about COVID. I think our community has made great strides in terms of being responsible, in terms of being vaccinated. And apparently, if our children are around such a responsible community, the risk within our schools should be less to a great degree than other communities that we're surrounded by. I think that the board and the district act out of an abundance of caution, and as a parent, I really appreciate that. But the cure cannot be worse than the disease, right? We need to keep schools open. We need to stay closer to CDC guidelines, and we need to reduce the amount of stress that's being put on parents. Improving infrastructure is obvious. Kids need to feel safe, they need to feel nurtured, and they need to feel comfortable. So having filtration, having heat, having the right things to eat for lunch is important. And most importantly, improving achievement and closing the gap. I have to be honest with you, I'm really concerned about some of the policies and measures that are in place. As a person of color, I implore you, we are not challenging our kids to the extent that we need them to be challenged, so that they can succeed beyond the district.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Telesford, please.
All right. I think the top three things are: one, intentional integration initiative. We began it this year, and we need to make sure that the project is a success. We're using an algorithm to place students, and we're going to need to make sure that we optimize that and make sure it's adaptive for each year. And I think it's another great idea is that we need to start developing metrics so that we can measure all the ways that our kids are thriving. And then we can see how we can improve the process each year and streamline it. The next thing is our post-pandemic transition. We're still in the midst of the pandemic, and I know it's incredibly frustrating for all of us. And I think the thing to point out is that much of what we're looking at with the pandemic is this is new science, and new science is very messy. And I think as a district, we need to focus on maximizing in-person learning. And I hope that if I'm on the board, I can help interpret the constantly changing scientific data that's coming in and provide some insight on how we can keep moving forward and keeping students in classes. And finally, the long-range facility plan is a very large financial endeavor. We're spending a lot of money, and that has some short-term effects and some long-term effects. The short-term, of course, is the construction we're seeing. We need to make sure that the construction is moving forward on maintaining on schedule. And of course, the long-term is trying to make sure that our classes aren't overcrowded and that our children have great schools to go to school. So.
Thank you. Candidate Cuddle.
Thank you. So the three, speaking about three urgent areas, issues for the district, one of the main and most important roles of the Board of Education is defining the priorities of the district, right? And then we take that and we translate that into our district goals. So, but the board's responsibility to ensure that the goals are focused and there are foundational work that support everything that we do to make a priority in the district, right? To support students, staff, our families, to make sure that we have excellence in education, that we are making sure that we're addressing protocols and procedures. And in that, the board has just recently passed district and board goals for this year, which include these key areas: facilities, including our $160 million long-range facility plan, right? Our district integration, being able to talk about teaching and learning and student achievement, staff recruitment, retention, and development. And within those goals, not just creating measurable metrics for data collection, but actually giving the district timelines and priorities to be able to work within those measures to make sure that they're reporting back to the board so we can be better informed to work on behalf of the community to make sure that our district is running efficiently, effectively, and moving forward. And within those parameters, also addressing student health and wellness, student social emotional well-being, and student learning loss, which has occurred during this COVID pandemic that we are still in, that others have said. All this tied together actually is part of the larger role of a board member to ensure that we're taking on the priorities at the district at each and every level.
Thank you. Candidate Vadlamani.
So I want to address these three important issues from the point of view of the three roles that I play in the community, right? The first is as a parent of children in the school district. The second is as a citizen of South Orange-Maplewood. And third is as a professional where I'm creating algorithms in the back. You know, as a parent, I really want to simplify the process of accessing education. That resonates the most with me. You know, one shouldn't have to jump through hoops to get the right resources. Can it be for the right classification, for special ed, or move to a proper level of class for people of color? And as in the past, you know, I mean, I worked with this South Orange-Maplewood, the middle school teachers to bring in AMC 8 math contest to our middle school. And what I want to do is to bring a coalition on our community to elevate the focus on math for all children in our school. Second, as a citizen of SOMA, obviously intentional integration is by far the most critical issue. We cannot and should not have demographic immobility in our school district. And the third thing, as a professional, I think managing the long-range facilities plan, I mean, as many people have pointed out, is extremely important. So if elected, I'll have to bring in all my skills in understanding big data and process-driven decision-making to ensure that it is on track. We're spending almost a full year's budget on these construction plans. So I think we should have a very good way of measuring success. Thanks.
Thank you. We will now move to the third question, which will be addressed first to candidate Telesford. Our community and school district focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Please discuss how this topic is important to you and how you will keep up to date on the needs of underrepresented groups that are important to our communities. How will you advocate for change to better serve these groups?
Okay, I think a great thing about growing up in this district was that it gave me an appreciation for people from diverse backgrounds. I went to Clinton School, and when I was there, I kind of felt there are many people that were like me because they were all children or grandchildren of immigrants. And that's one of the reasons why I support the integration initiative, intentional integration initiative, because it facilitates that type of environment that I encountered when I was here. And one of the ways that we can ensure that underrepresented groups have their needs met is by making sure that they see themselves in the curriculum. So this year we instituted the Amistad curriculum, and I think that's great, but we also have more work to do. We can start integrating the art, literature, and history of the AAPI community, Latinx, religious minorities, LGBT, and disabled communities. I think we demonstrate inclusion by having an environment where people can see themselves. And another organization that has impressed me a lot has been CPAC, because they are a group of very dedicated parents and they advocate for their children. And those are children with special needs. And as a board, we need to make sure that their children are never left out. And one way we can ensure that is by improving the rollout so their children have their individualized education plans from the start, and they have all the resources needed for them so they are ready on the first day of school.
Thank you. Candidate Cuddle.
Thank you. So this is my life's work. So this is really the crux of my passion and my drive, is to make sure that all students are seen and heard, that all students have a seat at a table. And looking at this from an equity lens, that includes all students, especially our most marginalized students who oftentimes don't have a seat at the table. And since my time on the board, I've been able to help integrate and have a focus on that with an equity inclusion lens and looking at all of our policies as commitment as a board to make them more inclusive and diverse, not just gender identity, but also looking at our student handbook. Our HR manuals have expanded to make sure that we're including all families and make sure that we're recruiting and retaining staff to know that we are a welcoming school environment for them to join us here. In my work on the board, I've also been instrumental in bringing in outside resources to ensure that my fellow board colleagues and our district and central administration staff are trained in cultural competency. I brought in Hendrick Martin Institute HMI to do training for the Board of Education. They even did training for central office, and they now have gone outreach to do training for all the principals. And then this year, for the first year for 2021-2022, all district staff will receive LGBT cultural competency training, suicide prevention training, and crisis prevention training. That has not happened in our district before. And as a big, strong advocate and beacon for inclusion in our district from an equity lens focus point, we have more work to do, but our district has become leaps and bounds evolving over the last 2.5 years in its commitment to being on that pathway.
Thank you. Candidate Vadlamani.
So our community's focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives is critical. It is core to who we are in South Orange and Maplewood. We shouldn't hesitate in stating that all schools are neighborhood schools, and we will not deny access to advanced classes. But on the other hand, we should not dilute the teaching standards for on-level classes. Inclusion also implies that we should simplify the process of getting educational resources. And as an immigrant, sometimes I definitely want to help other parents navigate sometimes unfamiliar education system. We need to be continuously pushing because there are barriers to child's access to resources even today. And in terms of curriculum, there are two things I really want to point out. One is, Kwavi and I have spoken a lot about this in the sense that he already mentioned this, is the Amistad curriculum. We want to make sure that the Amistad curriculum is implemented correctly. I know that parts have been. And also I'm a big supporter of Senator Vin Gopal's bill so that we can get AAPI curriculum into our system. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Whitlater.
One way to advocate for change is through closing the achievement gap once and for all. The achievement gap in our district has been ever present. We've seen the data, we've identified certain catalysts on the continuum of childhood education where this divide starts, and often it happens in elementary school. Now it's imperative that we take action and develop the strategies necessary that can stop the spread before it begins. We can't continue to repeat the same behaviors and expect to achieve different outcomes. I also think that for a district like ours to have stalled on implementing a rigorous Amistad curriculum is inexcusable, and we can do better than that. I want to do the work to support the superintendent in making this a priority and holding him accountable for student outcomes. We don't have enough conversations about teaching and learning in this district, and I want to make those conversations a priority. We live in a vibrant community, and it's some place that we're also proud to be part of. I think it's important that me personally, I continue to expand on my depth of cross-cultural understanding, and I was able to do that over the summer and throughout my time here as I've been exposing myself to the voices of our students and community members to learn more and see things from different perspectives. And I plan to continue to engage that way so that every child feels seen, understood, appreciated, and cared for in the South Orange-Maplewood School District.
Thank you. Candidate Rodriguez.
I really appreciate this question. First, let me say that I've been a large Brown person for the last 46 years, and that my views should be heard and should come through in policy decision-making, as well as how we prepare for the types of folks that are going to be moving into our towns going forward. It's no secret that our towns are becoming more affluent and less neurodiverse. So how do we prepare for that? We need to have a more inclusive environment. We need to listen closely to our parents. We need to invite more people to get involved. We need more diverse voices at the table. That's first and foremost. In addition to that, we need to make sure that everyone's identity is respected. And we need to begin to incorporate no tolerance policies for hate in our schools. On top of that, we need to institute anti-bias training for all teachers. we should not have the incidents that we've had, the numerous incidents that we've had over the last few years. I think that increasing the awareness of our teachers from a cultural and socioeconomic perspective is going to help us as we implement these programs to close these achievement gaps. And most importantly, I feel like we need to continue to challenge our best and brightest so that as they move out of the district, they can pull others along, okay, so that they can succeed as well.
Thank you. We'll now move on to question 4, which will first be addressed to candidate Cuddle, followed by the other candidates. Special education students make up 15% of all students in our district, and yet many families in our district know very little about the needs, accommodations, or services offered. Please describe your experience with or knowledge of special education and what strategies you would support to bridge the gap or eliminate the silos that can develop between general education and special education.
Thank you for the question. Well, first of all, the board has recognized the need of leadership in our special education programming in the past few years and created and supported to be able to onboard a brand new position for the Assistant Superintendent of Special Services. That was due in part to the fact there were significant marginalized and structural challenges, as well as the need for the district to be more flexible and to better identify the needs of students in the least restrictive environments possible. The board is getting ready to be able to announce a new 504 updated policy, and that will remind adults that all adults that reminds all adults that they too need to intervene on behalf of our special education students, including our principals, who need to be more proactive to ensure that they are looking out for all of our students at all times. Our special education students are not students that are in another category. They are our students. They are part of our community. They're part of our classrooms and families. And the district has been moving to make strides to allow better communication about special education services and making a point to be able to do additional outreach, but much, much more is needed. Since my time on the board, we went from having an interim special education, Dr. Morana, to being able to bring in Dr. Alegria as a permanent position and moving forward to be able to create new robust guidelines and parent manuals, which the district has not had before. The district has more work to do, and we continue to work on this progress, and it's a priority.
Thank you. Candidate Telesford.
All right, so when I began my campaign, I can say I knew very little about special education in our district, but throughout my journey, I've been able, and I've learned a lot. I've been able to speak with parents of children with special needs. I also attended the first CPAC meeting last week, and I truly admire that group because they are the strongest advocates for their children. I think one way the district can improve their commitment is to remove barriers that prevent children from getting services. If we're talking about inclusion, that means increasing access. The next thing is also providing earlier communication and resources so that kids are ready on day one. That means having their individualized education plan and paraprofessionals ready so there's no delay. And then finally, I think from the standpoint of the board, I think that means ensuring stability and leadership. In the last 10 years, I've been 7 administrators, and with that kind of turnover, it's very difficult for parents to navigate that kind of system. So I think we should continue to support the programs that we have and make sure that there is steady leadership, and also support programs in the parenting center so that parents have resources available to them throughout the year.
Thank you. Candidate Whitlater.
Thank you. Children with special education needs are a vital part of our student body and are often not treated as such in this district. A common trend I encountered in talking to families is that unfortunately many families have had to either move out of this district or they're sending their children to private schools because they're not getting the resources and supports from our district. We need to require that best practices are established around case management for our children, so that our teachers have carefully read through a child's IEP before the beginning of the school year. And when a child is transitioning from one school to another, there should be a formal process to connect case managers and families to better understand how we can meet every individual student's learning needs in a classroom setting. We must also continue to implement social and emotional learning into the professional development of our teacher body to support inclusion efforts. Another ongoing issue in our district has been the outsourcing of paraprofessionals, which has caused great concern about the quality and consistency of para coverage. The reason for outsourcing has been cited as the financial cost to hiring in-house. I think there is an opportunity to be more thoughtful about the school budget and where we choose to save money. It serves no one well when the special services team is more focused on preparing for litigation than serving the needs of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Rodriguez.
Thank you. Admittedly, this is an area where I need to do a lot more connecting with the community. From what I understand, turnover is a big problem in delivering special education services on a consistent basis. We need to rethink the staffing model. We need to attract and retain the best talent. Most importantly, if we have something in place that's currently working, even if it's outside of the district, that needs to maintain the way it is. We should not upset the apple cart in addition to the turnover, which already causes some disruption. I think the other candidates have some good ideas here, and we should implement those. Consistency, there needs to be familiarity with the students and the families, and we need to really rethink how we're going to attract the best talent. This is a deep and very complex issue, and I look forward to learning more about this.
Thank you. Candidate Badlamani.
Our school district should have the ability to take care and ensure that all children are doing well. And that obviously includes special education children. You know, over the past couple of months since the nomination process that happened some time back, Kwavi and I have spent a lot of time attending meetings. We've talked to many parents who are in the special education community and also have attended the CPAC meeting. And I can tell you one thing is that it's a very humbling experience to see the amount of effort that is put into ensuring that children are thriving, right? So one of my goals has, again, it's consistent across many different questions, has been to simplify the process of obtaining educational resources. I mean, yes, there should be appropriate precautions taken, but those should not be barriers to entry. And I was talking to one of the parents out there, and she was delivering lunches during COVID out to children with special education needs, but also in underserved areas. And the lack of communication to them is very severe. It's like they didn't know, they think very obvious start dates of school. They didn't know when ESY was going to start. So obviously that is one area we have to focus on.
Thank you. The next question, question 5, will be addressed first to candidate Rodriguez, followed by the other candidates. Many parents continue to express concerns about their children's safety on school property. What are the current safety and security policies with which you agree? Which would you advocate to improve?
Thank you. The current safety and security protocols are on the district's website. My understanding is that there is a memorandum of agreement in place, and there is security at our schools. I have a hard time squaring the concept of less or no security in our schools, and I'm speaking from personal experience. I attended a public high school in New York City, Martin Luther King High School. It was the first high school in New York to have metal detectors. During my freshman year, there was a shooting and a stabbing. I've had several fights. Some I've won, some I've lost. But I can tell you that having security in the school made me feel safer, but did not lead me to believe that I was never going to be affected by some of the violence or the crime that was happening in the school. I think that we need to maintain what we have. We don't need to go backwards. I think the community is aware of some of the incidents that have taken place in the last 18 months. And those incidents could or may not have been prevented, but I think most people align with having some security in our schools. I align with the community. Moreover, I feel like we should have a no tolerance policy for weapons. And we need to really think through our discipline and action plan when violent incidents occur in our schools.
Thank you. Candidate Badlamani.
I'm sure on everyone's minds, we have this recent tragedy that happened at the Underhill field. My heart goes out to the family. As a parent, I look for security as a 360-degree issue. Now, safety is physical, it's emotional, and psychological. And we need to ensure that all three are being met. We need to protect our children from bullying at schools and online, and ensure that our children grow up to be resilient and have empathy. And we should shy away from seemingly quick solutions that allow us a false sense of security. And another example of a policy that's already on the books is the updating of the LGBTQ policy that was recently updated, and it sets standards on how we should sets a template for how we should look at updating policies impacting impacting students who are very often marginalized. And board member Cuttle or candidate Cuttle, as I may be, is like a hat tip to you because you've kind of done some leadership on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Cuttle.
Thank you. So in regards to the policies of the district, the state of New Jersey, we're required, school districts are required by law to submit district security plans annually by June 30th for approval by the state. And these school district security plans include having the superintendent, local health departments, police, and other counselors and other folks to be involved in creating our overall template for security plans and crisis prevention that's then submitted to the state. Outside of that, the district, I will say in the past nearly 3 years I've served on the board, we have updated 4 security policies, one of which had not been updated in 20 years. The board has been working to ensure that we're looking and updating each of our policies and making sure that we're prioritizing updating our security measures. But one of the board's strongest commitments lately around that has been to move our part-time security director position, which was previously introduced by our interim superintendent, Dr. Fakara, to a full-time school and community safety director. And that's a step in the right direction, because one of the reimagining that role to include from going from a more of a police lens, from a lens that is looking at punitive versus restorative, to one to bring in a position that's going to work with students from a social emotional lens, be able to come from a perspective where they can provide not just insight and counseling for students, but be able to provide security to our schools that matches the students' social emotional health and well-being, and be able to help make and enforce the decisions with the school district and the board on better policies and practices.
Thank you. Candidate Telesford.
So as Arun mentioned already, we've spoken about this topic, and we had this whole idea of a 360-degree view of safety, which includes psychological, emotional, and physical safety. And I think we all know that all schools require a certain amount of physical safety that includes proper lighting, camera, and controlled entrances. But we also have to think about safety in a broader context. When we talk about safety, that means also having the proper counseling resources and social workers. And one of the policies that I support with the district is having a restorative justice framework. Because if a fight happens, we need to understand, why did that fight happen? And how do we provide emotional support to our students so that we can avoid these conflicts in the future? And likewise, I like the fact that we use tools like conflict resolution, anti-bullying, peer mentors, and counseling services. And I think it's great that we're providing those services. But we also start to need to look at psychological support, because when we talk about safety, we also do things like active shooter drills. And we have to ask ourselves, are these ways that we're providing safety to our students? Because if you look at any of the studies on active shooter drills, they all cause increases in stress, depression, and anxiety. So I think one of the things that we can explore is, are there different ways that we can look into providing safety to our students? And I think another opportunity that the district has is that they've updated their policy on sexual harassment, and they released a new document, an updated document last month. And I think we can start to look at adding consent training to that.
Thank
That
you.
is a K through 12.
Thank you. Candidate Whitlater.
I believe that our school district lacks a comprehensive security plan to ensure our children are safe on school grounds. The physical and emotional safety of our students is of the utmost importance, and immediate measures must be taken to secure our buildings and the Underhill Field sports facility. On June 6, 2021, Mustafa Fana, a beloved son, brother, community member, and friend, was murdered on school property. During the May 17th board meeting, the board stated that children no longer feel safe going to Underhill as spectators. There was no response. 3 weeks later, Musa was gone. Last year, our board was made aware of the insecurities in this district. Why didn't they act with a sense of urgency to protect our children? In that same board meeting, where the board did not address Underhill safety concerns, the board directed the superintendent to convene a task force to protect students from sexual harassment and violence in the district. The superintendent was expected to present a report with the results of that assessment, as well as recommendations to the board by no later than September of 2021. The September board meeting has come and gone, and this serious issue was not addressed. It's disconcerting that the board has not held our superintendent accountable to creating safe schools for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to the next question, which will be addressed first to candidate Cuddle, followed by the other candidates. In today's world, communication is paramount to running a successful school district. How can you, as a Board of Education member, ensure the district provides clear, concise, and timely communication to all families?
Sorry, I unmuted myself there. Thank you for the question. So this is also another important question because our district has faced challenges, been able to with communication since before I even got on the board. But since my time on the board, the district has made improvements into communication in ways that we had not had before, such as the communication with the district now has social media outreach on various social media channels. Dr. Chandler now does a newsletter sent out to families. The administration, after much push from board members, including myself, this year, we now also put out a update post our board meetings to better inform the community. Emails go out for communication to students, families, and the community at large. That has not happened before collectively, but we have more work to do, much more work to do. An example of that is the recent communication, the poor communication that went out after the incident, unfortunate incident of alleged bias and discrimination at Seth Boyden. That communication was not clear and concise, and in of itself lacked perhaps some additional empathy and care and understanding. And for our district to be able to also have a different focus on the lens in our communications, ensuring that all of our district families have access to that communication. That means having communication in different languages and making sure that persons of different abilities have access to communication, who don't have phones, who have mobile devices that perhaps that don't interact well with our website, that might have other abilities. Our district and the focus on communication is something that's ongoing and I'm very passionate about.
Thank you, Candidate Cuddle. Candidate Whitlater.
I believe I will bring to this board TLC, and I chose TLC for a reason: transparency, leadership, and collaboration. We need to build back lines of communication and trust with our community, and that can't be done unless the Board of Education puts in the work to strengthen communication amongst one another and with our administration. Our board would benefit from adopting a win-win mentality. Our students win when our leadership works together to win. Over the last 3 years, the Board of Education self-evaluation scores have been trending downward. The two areas that scored the lowest for the board as a whole were planning and performance. And again, this is their self-evaluation. I believe that this dynamic can change. If I was elected, because I am a firm believer of seeking to understand before being understood, I respect all individuals, I embrace different viewpoints than my own, and I hold myself, my team, and leaders accountable for doing what they're expected to do. I believe the district needs to move away from taking a one-size-fits-all approach in how we communicate with our families and students, and we need to adopt more equitable methods of communication, which give parents choices that are convenient to them and which would afford each and every family, regardless of race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status, an opportunity to receive information, address their concerns, and make the best decisions for their children. Thank you.
Candidate Rodriguez.
Thank you. First, I want to commend Caitlin for an amazing answer to the prior question. You gave that question the justice that it really deserved. Thank you. On the topic of communication, the best advice I've ever received about communication is that communication is what the listener does. That said, we cannot dismiss or diminish the feedback we receive from parents. We need to listen very deeply to our parents and without any bias for diverse views, first and foremost. Second, since I've moved here, I've been inundated with communications from the district and otherwise. So I think in order to communicate effectively, we need to use the preferred mode of communication and communicate at the right times. So whether that's text, and by the way, the text messages that I receive from the district require a second click. We need to deliver short bites of communication in the body of the same text message. That means if the school's going to close, just tell me it's going to close. Second, we need to have an app so that people can have settings for their preferred mode of communication. And third, we don't need to dismiss communications from the state and federal level about emergencies or severe weather. For example, prior to Hurricane Ida, the National Weather Service issued a flood warning. We need to heed those warnings and not park the buses in a flood zone. Thank you.
Candidate Badlamani.
The most important thing about communicating is to have the same message go out on multiple media. Now, maybe different channels, different modes of access, because people do it differently. And in some cases, I think it's even important to send a good old-fashioned printout of a paper back in the backpack so that people can see that. But on the flip side, this is something I've actually experienced myself, is that there truly is, in some cases, information overload, in the sense that, are we getting too much information, or am I going to get information specific to what I'm looking for? So I feel sometimes we're looking more like a Google, where all the answers are there, but I don't know exactly what the question to ask or the small bucket that I need to be there. So we need to make sure that all the information is archived and searchable, which is, what if I forget, I delete my email, I want to go back and take a look at that. And as a parent, I'm always a little frustrated at the synchronization between the different data systems that we have. We have PowerSchool and we have Canvas, and the grades show up in one and not in the other. And so that definitely needs to be pinned down. So that's what I'm looking at from the communication point of view.
Thank you. Candidate Telesford.
I guess when I think about communication, I always think about my work doing research. In all the studies that I do, we collect a lot of data, but when you want to present your data, it's about being able to communicate important concepts, whether that's in a poster or a manuscript. And I think when people don't, I guess, understand what you're communicating, it represents kind of a failure in how you presented that information. And I think one way that the district can improve upon that is if we look at a lot of the district's website, there's lots of information there. You can find everything there, but sometimes too much information is overwhelming. And I think one of the things I can advocate for is providing ways that we can strategically provide relevant information to parents. But I think besides looking at apps or text messages or the website, we have to also make sure that we are communicating to all parents. Because we have members of this community that may not speak any English. They could be a refugee family. So we have to make sure that the district has the tools and the ability to communicate to all families so that their kids can also be served by this district.
Thank you. Question 7 will go first to candidate Badlamani, followed by the other candidates. Now that we are in the first phase of the Intentional Integration Initiative, what successes and challenges have you seen or heard thus far? What can the board do to ensure continued success of this critical initiative for the school district?
So the first thing we do is we've made an excellent start. I mean, starting is always, sometimes there's inertia to start, but once we do that, it's going well. It's taken us many, many election cycles to get here. And if we don't get it right now, it will take many more election cycles to fix it. So, my whole saying is that, perfect is the enemy of good and of progress. So there may be turbulence at the beginning, but we should be looking for it in the long run and focus on defining what the success metrics will be. And so once we do that, it will be very easy to look for and make any minor course correction. So, like, for example, I mean, like when I was campaigning the other day, I was on Coolidge Street in Maplewood, and I met, the very first person I've met who's been impacted by this. The parent was there, and the child was zoned for, I believe, Clinton, but was being sent to South Mountain School because of intentional integration. And she said that she did not see any big difference in diversity. And that's when it struck me, is that, these things take time. I mean, we're trying to change averages. So therefore, I would say that it's moving along. We should check every year and ensure that we are meeting the goals of the intentional integration.
Thank you. Candidate Whitnader.
The Intentional Integration Initiative is a positive first step in better integrating our schools and making them reflective of the vibrant community we are also proud to be part of. As a board member, I think it's important to focus on the quality implementation of the integration plan, and that's by taking steps to ensure that it's being done well and that we are creating a school system that works for everyone. We know that there have been some challenges this year as a result of labor shortages, especially bus drivers, which has led to frustration for everyone involved. This is a learning year, and the goal is to create best practices to prepare for future challenges. And one key learning we should all be taking away from this year is just to be more proactive with communicating early and often. There's still a tremendous amount of work to be done to ensure that teaching and learning in each school is also representative of the changing student population. And the board should have a clear implementation timeline of key action, deliverables, and timing. We need to closely track progress and outcome to ensure all students are benefiting from this critical work. And we must also continue to push on recruiting and retaining diverse teachers, supporting teachers through change, and ensuring our curriculum reflects the diversity of our student body. And again, I reiterate how important it is that we implement a rigorous AMASAD curriculum in this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Rodriguez.
Thank you. The Intentional Integration Initiative was what initially attracted me to this race. I'm sorry, to this race. When we moved to Maplewood, just down the street from South Mountain, and we learned that potentially our child from our diverse family potentially could not go to that school, we were really confused, and I began to do some digging. And what I found was that the plan, as good as it is, lacks an element of thoughtfulness, right? And it needs to go deeper than just race. Diversity encompasses everything, right? It's the way we worship, it's our socioeconomic backgrounds, it's the political beliefs of parents, it's what part of town you live in and where you came from, what did your parents achieve? I mean, it's just so much deeper than what I can see on the surface. It's a little too early to claim any successes, but I can tell you that there are many areas where we can do better. Primarily, how are we tracking the progress and improvement of each child and each family that's affected by this program? But I can tell you from a logistical perspective, there are some people that are suffering. There are people that had bus services that no longer have bus services. And on top of everything else we're faced with, I think we need to make sure that we're being very careful with how we treat families as we implement the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cuddle.
Thank you. So we're in the initial stages of our integration plan itself, and it was vitally important to our school district and our community so we can continue to de-level and desegregate our community and allow opportunity, access, and true equity, not just equality, aligned across our school district community. And that's why the board made the commitment within this endeavor under Dr. Taylor's leadership the past 3 years to ensure that we could get to this point. And it was because of Dr. Taylor that in the board that supported him to decouple the integration plan from the construction plan, seeing it as something that we needed to start on now in order to make sure that our district was moving forward. The integration plan itself is ongoing, and we're going to need to assess and look at best practices and its impacts. And I believe tomorrow night's CNI meeting, Board of a Whole, we will be, according to the agenda, we will begin an update on the integration plan and initiatives thus far. But the integration plan alone is just a stepping stone. It also means we have to do robust professional development, being able to look through an equity lens, cultural competency, making sure that all of our teachers, our staff at all levels have the support systems in place to be able to support our diverse students and families, be able to create a climate and culture that's welcoming and ensuring for all of our students' families is embedded in this work, and that's how we are moving forward.
Thank you. Candidate Telesford.
From the parents I've spoken to, they've all had a very positive view of the first phase of this plan. Many of them talk about how much their kids love their teachers and they support the overall scope of the intentional integration initiative. Some of the challenges I've heard have been that some parents would like a faster rollout of school assignments so they can coordinate their commutes better, but overall, they're still very happy with the program. I think a way the district can ensure its continued success is to make sure the algorithm is optimized each year to ensure that the student body remains diverse. And the next thing we can do is develop metrics that help give us benchmarks to demonstrate success of the program. We need ways to evaluate achievement and also follow student trajectory so that we can adjust the program wherever needed. But I think one of the most important things to point out is that this program is not something new to this community. This is something this community has always done. Whether you look decades ago, it was when we bused kids between Jefferson and Marshall. Or if you just looked at school assignments, 25% of kids don't go to the school that they live closest to. That's because this community has always supported these initiatives and these ideas of having a diverse school body. And it's one of those things that I grew up with when I was at Clinton School, was a diverse school body. It's something that we have always supported in this community.
Thank you. This concludes tonight's questioning round, and we will now move to closing statements. As I mentioned, I will reverse the order in which we held the opening statements. In their closing statements, we'll ask the candidates to include their opinion about what they view as some of the district's biggest wins in the last 2 to 3 years. They will each have 90 seconds, and we will begin with candidate Rodriguez.
Thank you. I haven't been in the district for 3 years to recount some of the biggest wins, but I can tell you in recent history, opening the schools has been a major win, not just for our students, but also for our parents. As a person of income from a very challenged background, I don't know how my family back then would have survived if I wasn't able to go to school. I know that's a very difficult thing to square for families that are proponents of remote learning or hybrid learning. But I can tell you that if we don't get back to normal life, the consequences are going to be much more severe than the achievement gap. Besides that, I really like what the district is doing in terms of pushing things along and improving achievement. But I can tell you that parents need options, and maybe just allowing them to take their kid to the school they choose in the district, maybe that's real equity, right? We need to think about what parents and what families want and need in front of a slide deck that's being pushed by the same consultant in every other school district that doesn't seem to be working. Overall, I'm a big proponent of achievement, and I think the best thing we can do for people of color is to challenge them, challenge the leaders, and allow them to achieve so they can pull others along with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Vadlamani.
I want to thank again the organizers of this debate, my fellow candidates for participating. I hope that I have put forth my framework for a process-driven and a practical decision-making approach, along with my beliefs and views with passion and energy. I love this community. My family has lived here for over 18 years. My children have known no other home nor another school district. They're growing up to be responsible global citizens. Therefore, I'm honored to put myself forward to serve on our BOE. If elected, I hope to round out the board's collective knowledge with my practical approach to problem solving. I have the conviction, temperament, time, and the energy to collaborate professionally with other board members in setting quantifiable objectives for the superintendent. The intentional integration plan and the long-range facilities plan are the most significant wins over the past couple of years. Still, I believe the biggest victories for our school district are yet to come. We should look forward to being the beacon for other school districts nationwide in having an equitable, fully integrated, high-performing, and a harmonious school district. Equity and excellence are not mutually exclusive. Wishful thinking, you say, but I'm not the only one, I say. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Whitlater.
Something that I view as a tremendous win in our district occurred last year. During the curriculum and instruction meeting, I learned that our teachers were making house calls during the pandemic to support our students who are at risk of falling behind. And I learned that Columbia High School actually opened its doors to allow those students to spend time in school and receive the extra support that they needed. And when I shared this story with another parent, they told me that their elementary age child, who was very shy and was just having a very difficult time reading out loud in front of everyone on Zoom, their teacher had encouraged that child to call after hours and read over the phone. And the child did and much preferred that. And these are the stories that when I hear them, they inspire me and are a constant reminder of why I'm proud to live here, why I want to be part of this Board of Education, and why I do think that change is on the horizon. Another win for the district is the investment in Atlas, which is now our curriculum planning platform, and it will support the district's efforts to continuously refine and improve our curriculum development process. And as I stated prior, there's been an explosion of new and innovative ways to learn. We have to update our curricula so we can start having conversations around these innovative ways and start providing professional development to our teachers to give access to these innovative ways of learning to our students. And last but not least, I just want to thank the President's Council, the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum. I want to thank all my fellow candidates, and I want to thank everyone watching from home. Thanks for dedicating time to learn more about why all of us would like to serve on the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Telesford.
So when I consider changes in the district, I think one of their biggest wins was removing barriers created by leveling. When I was a student here, leveling negatively impacted me. So I was glad when I was given the opportunity to speak before the board in 2018 in favor of ending the practice. And as I look as the district is moving forward with the intentional integration initiative, I see that as another one of their wins. And I hope that I can join the board to be part of such wins. But to me, actually, the biggest win has actually been going around the community and meeting so many alumni that I either went to school with or they graduated before or after me. And I have to say, there's a reason that many of us come back here. And that's because this is a great community and we have great schools here. And I've been in this district for a generation, and I hope to establish my roots here and so that my children can also flourish in this community. And so when I think of the BOE, I think it's all about vision and having a bird's eye view that recognizes all the interacting parts. And to navigate these challenges requires us to have a collaborative team and appreciation for the complexity that it entails. I hope that my research background and analytic skills can be an asset to the board, and I would be honored to serve the community to provide a great education to all children. I want to thank the President's Council and the League of Women Voters, and I hope that you can support us in our run. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cuddle.
Thank you. When I ran for the Board of Education 3 years ago, I said that we need to move our district forward and that we needed a foundation to build upon to address access and equity, systems and data collection, our crumbling outdated facilities, and address district leadership. Since I joined the Board of Education, I have worked with the board to build the foundation, and now we are at a pivotal next steps and are moving forward together to continue the important hard work next to building the frameworks now, the infrastructure and the pathway towards 21st century learning. If we lose the momentum, if we lose sight of our board purpose, function, and goals, if we don't have the lens on our students first, if we don't have compassionate, committed, dedicated, knowledgeable, diverse, and collaborative board members at the table, it will all derail. Our once-in-a-generation facilities plan moving SOMSD to 21st century learning, moving towards a caring community, building welcoming, inclusive schools for all students to thrive inside and outside the classroom, and who will suffer the most is our students, who are our next generation of leaders. I also want to acknowledge that today is Indigenous Peoples Day and National Coming Out Day. Our classrooms and hallways and materials should mirror and reflect all of our diverse students, families, and our beloved community across our curriculum, inside and outside the classroom, and our teachers, staff, our leadership at all levels, and yes, on the Board of Education. This is why I'm also proud to serve as the first transgender non-binary elected school board member in South Orange-Maplewood and in New Jersey. Representation matters, visibility matters, it can save lives. And to quote Audre Lorde, there is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. Thank you to the President's Council, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, and to all that are watching tonight.
Thank you, candidates. And I want to thank everyone for their participation in tonight's forum. Thank you for treating one another with respect, for dealing with Zoom, which we've all had to deal with for far too long. And in particular, I would like to thank everyone who is watching this event. Elections decide who will make decisions on our behalf. Doesn't matter how much money a candidate has raised or what endorsements they've gathered. What matters is the number of people who vote for them in the election. And a lot of people think that voting doesn't matter, that special interest groups and big business has all the power, that individual citizens like you and me don't have any control over our government or politics. That's simply not true. Voters decide who will have power. You are the voters, you have the power. The question is, will you use your power? Our ability to choose our representatives means they work for us. Elections, in particular local elections like this one, can be decided by as close a margin as one vote. One. That could be yours. And this is an important election. Voters' decisions affect you, your family, your children, your community, you. Elections matter. If you are not yet registered to vote, the deadline to register is tomorrow, October 12th, and you can get more information about registering by calling 1-877-658-6837 or by going online to www.vote411.org or the New Jersey Voter Information Portal. This year's elections will be held in person on November 2nd, the general election day. But you can also cast your ballots by mail-in ballot if you requested one, or in person at your county's early voting polling locations between October 23rd and October 31st. Find your polling locations by going to the New Jersey Voter Information Portal or calling 1-877-658-6837. Participate in our democracy. Participate in your government. Let your voice be heard by exercising your right to vote. Help us keep our democracy going strong by joining the League of Women Voters or even by running for election yourself. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.